Africa's largest mixed martial arts federation, Extreme Fighting Championship, the EFC, has secured private equity investment to the value of $2 million. The investment follows several similar high-profile investments by alternative capital into sports, such as in South Africa in international rugby, Formula One, English football, and Tour de France. But what does the cash injection mean for the EFC? We speak to EFC President Cairo Howarth and two-time EFC middleweight champion Gareth Soldier Boy McLellan. Gentlemen, a very good evening and thank you so much for joining us. Cairo, let me start with you. From your perspective as the EFC, what does this mean in the bigger scheme of things?
You know, EFC was founded in 2009, so we've been going for 16 years. We've been building the sport in Africa, really educating fans, media about it, and obviously developing talent. But this really puts EFC in a different position from a financial position. It gives us more money for growth into the continent. It makes us more financially secure, and it also gives us more cash, more funds in order to reinvest into the athletes. And they're really the biggest winners out of all of this. So it's a really exciting time for us.
And I mean, before we talk about the athletes, and I'm sure Soldier Boy would like to address that, Cairo, talk to me about just from a spectator point of view, from a fan perspective, what does this mean in terms of, availability of EFC fights?
First up, it's just going to mean higher quality competition, high quality bouts that you're going to be watching. You know, as EFC grows financially, effectively, it puts a bigger percentage back into the athletes, more funds into the athletes. And what that gives is, when you pay an athlete to compete, if they're getting more money, frankly, they're going to put more time into it, more resource into it. They're going to get a better support team. And Gareth can kind of explain more on this. You know, he's obviously walked that journey himself. But the more money an athlete makes, the better they actually become at competition. So from a fan point of view, you're going to see higher quality athlete performances, high quality matchups. We're going to be bringing in more top international opponents from outside of Africa to test the level of the African athletes and make sure that we continue to build and grow African mixed martial arts. That on top of we're reinvesting more into our content production, so doing more reality type shows, more storytelling of the athletes, and there's some really exciting content that we're going to be producing with Gareth as well, literally looking for the next mixed martial arts superstars coming out of Africa, the next Dricus du Plessis, the next Themba Garimbos. So from a fan point of view, you're going to have more access to better quality athletes and bouts.
Gareth, let me bring you into the conversation. I mean, again, looking from a athlete's perspective, you have tasted the pain and pleasure of being inside the octagon. But what does this mean for athletes, for those that actually go inside the octagon?
Well, I think EFC has such a long-standing history for producing great fights, great fighters, and there's numerous different names that have come through the EFC ranks that have gone on to be champions in other organizations, as well as fights in the biggest organizations like UFC and ONE FC. It allows the African continent to know that they have security in an event that it has been around for 15 years and will continue to grow and be around for the next 15 years. So for us, we go, okay, well, we know that there's a good platform. We know that there's a good opportunity for us to expose ourselves to high quality fighters. And then in order that can build our own brands and build our own names and, then open us up to the much larger scale promotions on the globe.
As far as development, Gareth, how much does this help in creating the next Soldier Boy, the next Dricus du Plessis?
So massively. I mean, again, like I said, like we've touched on, it's a security to know that the EFC is there, and once there's a platform for us to compete, it inspires. You look at how Francis Ngannou's and Israel Adesanya and Kamar Usman and Dricus and Themba Garimbo, and these are guys who all have incredible stories from the continent and how they've traveled and how they've developed themselves in other spaces and finally took themselves to the pinnacle where they became champion. So there's that hope, there's that desire and that feeling to say, well, if they can do it, we can do it as well. And then EFC is that perfect platform to do it in. Competition is great. You get a high level of competition. You're getting good fights that you can build up a good career. There's an amazing contender series attached to EFC, which allows amateurs from across the African continent to come in and compete. So we've kind of ticked all the boxes, and EFC can provide you a start to finish kind of environment whereby you could then grow yourself into a space where you could potentially sign a contract with the UFC. And, you know, who knows if you can compete in the same way, go on to become a world champion like those big names that have come off the continent.
Cairo, let me pick up on the point that Soulja Boy is making of that link going into the UFC. I mean, is that part of, I guess, the excitement that we're seeing for potential champions to say, if you are involved in the EFC, there's an opportunity for you to even go to the grander stage of mixed martial arts?
That's exactly it. We are basically the unofficial feeder system, if you want to call it that, for African mixed martial artists to get to the UFC. So if you're starting out in mixed martial arts in Africa, and like Gareth mentioned, the Contender Series is something new that we've launched. So that's for amateur athletes. So you can come and compete at EFC Contender Series as an amateur. You fight and you're fighting to get an EFC professional contract. Then let's say you do well, you get an EFC professional contract. Then you fight your way up in the EFC. Hopefully you do well. One day you become a champion. At that point, you are very much on the UFC's radar. They look at our champions, they watch our show, and then hopefully from there you go into the UFC, and hopefully you can continue to perform well. We really provide that full 360 platform. When you're fighting at EFC, it's not just a competition, the level, you're also fighting on national television, you're fighting on free-to-air, on pay TV, you're fighting in front of 20 different broadcasters across Africa. We've got probably the biggest television distribution out of any sporting property in Africa. So you're getting used to fighting on television under the cameras and lights, which is also something that's really important for the likes of the UFC. So by the time you get there, you're not, stage starstruck and getting stage fright when you're coming out there. We also have comprehensive medical care for the athletes, so we look after them really well. When they travel for our events, they stay in nice hotels. So they really get the experience of fighting at the UFC when you fight at the EFC. So by the time they go to the UFC, they are truly ready to be there.
Right, gentlemen, unfortunately we're out of time, but thank you so much to the both of you for coming through